Right. So today we will see the stress strain behavior of soil. So we saw the shear strength parameters, how these shear strength parameters are affected due to different conditions of the soil, like particle density, whether the soil is normally consolidated, pre-consolidated, what is the water content. So different parameters that affect the strength of soil also that we saw in the last class. Then we saw different tests carried out in the field and in the lab to evaluate the shear strength of soil. So basically, the whole concept behind all this is you have to find out the major principal stresses and the corresponding shear stresses that the soil can bear. And once you have this normal stress and shear stress combination, you can plot a failure envelope, and from the failure envelope that is plotted in the sigma tau space, you can find out the slope of that line. That will give you your angle of internal friction. Then the tau intercept of that line or the failure envelope, you can find out your cohesion of the soil. So we saw till that in the last class. So today we will see the stress strain behavior of soils. All right, so let us start with sands. So stress strain relationship of sand. So basically the stress strain relationship of sand, it depends upon the initial state of compactness or density index, isn't it? We discussed this yesterday. So which type of uh, soil will have a higher strength, basically? Which type of sand will have a higher strength? What do you think? The sand with a high density index or a low density index? High, if you have a high density index, because there will be particles will be packed better, so there will be more interparticle contact, so there will be more friction generated between the particles to prevent them from sliding over each other, isn't it? So the more compact your soil is, there are the soil might have high shear strength as well, right? So initial state of compactness or density index. We saw several other factors also yesterday, like shape of the particles, contact between the particles, etc., isn't it? So basically the most important contributing parameter here is the initial state of compactness or the density index of the soil. So we can for this we can classify the soil into three now. I'll call loose sand, medium sand, and dense sand, and we will compare the stress strain behavior of these three. So in the case of loose sands, okay, see, I'll turn on my video. So let me say, I have always talked about my knuckle theory, right? These knuckles, as you can see here, right? So imagine all my knuckles as sand particles, right? All these knuckles are sand particles. So if it was pretty loose, then you can say that the particles will be like this, somewhere something like this, right? There are large voids in between, right? Medium dense, something like this, and dense, something like this. All right, can you visualize? Yes, this is dense soil, this is medium dense, and this is loose soil. All right, different setting, right? So if it was, what I'm going to do is I'll apply some, these are my particles now. Okay, suppose I'm talking about loose sand now. All right, large voids in between. Can you see that? Loose sand. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some normal stress. I'm going to apply some normal stress, right? From the top, I'm going to apply some normal stress. So what will happen if I apply some normal stress on the top? What will happen? Some shear stresses will be mobilized, right? And the particles will try to roll over each other, correct? I apply some normal stress like this on the top, so the particles will slide over each other, correct? And the friction generated to prevent this sliding is basically the strength of the soil, isn't it? So imagine loose sand. This is loose sand, all right? This is loose sand. I'm applying some normal stress, and the particles are trying to slide over each other, right? Particles are sliding over each other. Now some friction is developed, and the particles are sliding over each other. Now it has come to a more compact position, correct? So it has densified itself, correct? So you can see that. So initially you had large voids, correct? Now I am applying some normal stress. Some shear stresses are generated on the particles in this interface. Now the particles slide over each other. So you can see that the voids are compressed. The particles rearrange themselves. They come to a more dense or compacted state, correct? So the overall volume has reduced, correct? Now Once the particles have come to this dense state and that normal stress is already acting, particle has come to a more dense state. Now if I apply further normal stress, it becomes more difficult for the particles to roll over each other. Why? Because it has come to a denser state, and more interparticle contact is there, so it becomes more tough, isn't it? Correct. This is basically the behavior of loose sands. Now imagine dense sand. Okay, now my particles are dense already. Correct. Now I have applied some normal stresses and it is transferred to the soil and they try to roll over each other. Now what happens? The particles are already in a dense state. So if you apply enough normal stress and enough shear stress is mobilized in the soil, so that what will happen? The particles will try to roll over each other again. Correct? They will roll over each other again, isn't it? They will slowly try to, if you apply enough stresses, if you apply enough force, what will happen? Slowly in this dense form also, the particles will try to slowly displace, isn't it? Finally, they will maybe, let me move my knuckle to this knuckles. Okay, suppose this is the initial stage. So what will happen? They will slowly dilate now, right? Then they will come to another dense configuration, correct? Can you see that? I moved from here to here. They have come to a better configuration now, correct? Yes, can you see that? So initially it was like this, something like this. It was already in a dense state. Now I applied a large amount of stresses to move this to this. It has come to a more denser combination now, right? So medium dense soil is somewhere in between these. All right, I'll come back to the PPT now. So if you look at this figure now, so this is the stress versus strain behavior of loose sand, medium dense sand, and dense sand. Okay, so loose sand, let us look at loose sands first. Okay, let us look at loose sands first. So if you look at this figure, you forget the first two. This represents the strain, shear strain or the axial strain, and this represents your shear stress or deviatoric stress. Okay, so in the loose sand, if you look at it, you can see that the strain with strain, the stress develops slowly, or you can also say with an increase in stress, the strain develops slowly and gradually. Correct? Can you see that? Now correlate it with the soil slowly rolling over each other and attaining a dense state and attaining its maximum shear strength, as you can see here. Correct? Can you see that? It slowly started coming into a dense configuration, and once it has come to its best possible configuration, here you can see that it has reached its peak. Correct? Peak strength. Correct? But if you look at dense sand here, you see that with very less strain, that means it's already in a dense combination. All right, so with very less particle deformation, it has already reached its peak strength, right? Because particles are already in a dense state, so if you apply a stress, it can withstand large amount of stresses with minimal deformation, as you can see here, and it has reached its peak strength. But once you keep on applying the stresses again, what will happen? The particles will slowly slide over each other. But once it slides over each other again, it might not come to its best possible configuration again, but it will still come to a critical state. I call this hatched line the critical state. Okay, so that is a whole new whole different topic in soil mechanics, which is called critical state soil mechanics, where you study the behavior of soil once they have reached the critical state after this point. So for your BTech, I'll stop this graph here. All right, for your MTech, for your PhD or something, you will start from here. All right, you will start from here and you will go forward. Okay, basically in simple terms. So for your BTech level, I'll stop here and I will tell you that you have reached your critical state. Okay, so from there you will start another subject, critical state soil mechanics, which I am not going to cover in this course. Okay, so let us go with it again. So loose sands, you can see that for a particular amount of strain, you can see that when the particles roll over each other or when the particles slide over each other, there will be some strain. So the particles are going to deform, or the particles are going to roll over each other, and stresses slowly build up. Why? Because the particles roll over each other and comes to a better configuration, correct? So the particles have reached from here, it has reached here, all right? So it has gained its strength over a particular range of strain. Particles will roll over each other slowly. The strains are developed, strains are noticed, and stresses are developed, and you will reach that critical state after a particular amount of strain. After a particular amount of strain means after a particular deformation, or once the particles have rolled over each other enough to come to a best possible locking position, correct, or best maximum friction is developed, right? But in the case of dense sand, and you can see dense sand and medium dense sand, you have above, there is some shear strength above that hatched line, above that critical state. Why? Because this is due to interlocking between the particles. All right, if the particles are angular or so, the particles have interlocked between each other, good interlocks between each other, which will contribute to its strength, right? So strength of sandy soil will come from two aspects. One is interlocking between the particles, and the other one is friction between the particles, right? So dense sand and medium dense sand, the particles are already interlocked. That is not the case with loose sand. In loose sand, the strength only comes from friction between the particles, right? So that friction is also developed only when the particles come into more and more contact. So that happens in loose sands. Slowly the particles will come into contact when you apply the stresses, and it will come to this critical state. But in the case of dense sands, there is some interlocking as well. So for lower strains, actually, it doesn't have to deform so much, or it doesn't have to roll over each other so much to reach that peak stresses. All right, same goes for medium dense sand as well, but not as that much as the dense sand, but you can still see that it is above the critical state. But after that, you have reached that peak, then it drops down for further strain. That is, the particles are rolling over each other, and again they will come to this critical state. They roll over each other and they will come to this critical state. And any further stresses you apply, for any further strains, for any further deformation, there is not going to be any change in strength. All right. So this is the behavior of loose sand, medium dense sand, and dense sand, the stress strain behavior. You can think about it like a very hard material and a soft material, isn't it? Loose sand and dense sand. You have seen similar graphs so already in your solid mechanics and all, isn't it, for different types of materials, correct? So you can correlate it with that, how dense a material is. If it is a very dense material, maybe it will undergo brittle failure, isn't it? But this one may be plastic failure, right? So you can correlate it with the behavior of material like that, correct? As you can see here, if you look at the volume change characteristics, here you can see volumetric strain is positive. That means the particle is going to dilate, and here it is negative. That means the particle is going to get compacted. All right, it's going to contract. So loose sand, what will happen with loose sand? The particles are going to slide over each other. They are they are going to slide and fall into their best possible configuration. Initially there was large number of voids, so with an axial strain you can see that the volume keeps on decreasing in loose sand, isn't it? But it is not going to decrease infinitely, so it will decrease, reach a particular point, and then it will go straight, right? But in the case of dense sand, you can see here, it initially there will be a small compression, because however dense it is, you apply a little bit, you try to apply some strain, there will be a small change in, small drop in the volume initially. But then what will happen, the particles will roll over each other again from their dense configuration. They will roll over each other again, and there will be dilation in the sand, isn't it? Right, I showed you using the knuckles initially. So there will be some dilation, and then it will be constant. After that it will become constant, right? Similarly, the behavior of medium sand will be in between these two. Right, so in the case of volumetric strain for medium dense soil, you can see that there is some volume decrease in the beginning, but after that it will also dilate. But in the case of very loose sands, slowly it will keep on getting denser, and once it has reached that critical state, it will be constant. Here also, once you have reached the critical state, then it will go constant. Here again, medium dense sand, once it have reached the critical state, it will go constant. All right, so this is the volumetric volume change characteristic of sandy soil. Now, if you look at over consolidated clay and normally consolidated clay, which will be in a more dense packing, normally consolidated or over consolidated? Over consolidated will be in a more dense, isn't it? Yes, why? Because it has already experienced such high pressure in its past, and the particles may have come closer together, so they have better, attraction between them. So it will be packed better, of course, right? So it has already undergone some consolidation, and the volume has already decreased. So if you can compare the clay soil behavior to this graph, I can say that the loose sand curve is similar to that of normally consolidated clay, and the dense sand behavior is similar to that of over consolidated clay. All right. So dense sand similar to over consolidated clay, loose sand similar to normally consolidated clay. Okay. Is that clear? Can you correlate? So now if you look at the volumetric strain behavior also, you can correlate your dense sand behavior to over consolidated clay and your loose sand behavior to normally consolidated clay. Similarly, if you look at the change in pore pressure during shear, it is not very common due to high permeability in the case of sandy soil, right? In the case of sandy soil, why? Because permeability is very high. So you apply some stresses. You remember the spring analogy. You consider if it is sandy soil, you can open the valve completely, isn't it? Because permeability is very high. You apply a load. Initially, even though pore pressure generates, it will dissipate very fast, isn't it? In the case of sandy soil. But even though, well, let us see the pore pressure generation. So if it is a loose sand, you can see here pore pressure, this is the positive and this is the negative. In loose sand, pore pressure keeps on generating. Why? Because why? Why is such a behavior in loose sand? Because loose sand has more voids, and in more voids you have more water present in those voids, isn't it? If you are considering saturated loose sand, dense sand, and medium dense sand, you have more water in loose sand, isn't it? Because in loose sand your voids are more, so you apply a load, your pore pressure generation in loose sand obviously will be more, isn't it? But in the case of dense sand, even though initially it will generate a little bit pore pressure, but then the pore pressure is going to be negative. Pore pressure will slowly dissipate in the case of dense sand. Why? Because already there is very little water in the dense sand. So that pore pressure will generate initially, but after that suddenly it is going to dissipate. Medium dense sand, of course, the behavior is in between these two. And in the case of clay soil, definitely the pore pressure is going to build up and it will take more time for it to dissipate. So loose sand, it is similar to normally consolidated clay. So pore pressure will generate in normally consolidated clay and over time it will dissipate. But in the case of dense sand or ambiguous to over consolidated clay, it will be negative. As you can see here, your dense sand behavior is similar to that of over consolidated clay, and loose sand behavior is similar to that of normally consolidated clay, right? So this is the variation of pore pressure in loose sand, dense sand, and medium dense sand. Similarly, loose sand is ambiguous to that of normally consolidated, and dense sand is ambiguous to that of over consolidated clay. Now coming to critical void ratio, if you look at this graph, so the volume change characteristics that we saw for sand, the volume change characteristics that we saw here. Remember this graph. Okay, this is the volume change. Loose sand, it will keep on getting compacted. Dense sand, it is going to get dilated, right? Already dense particles are going to roll over each other again, and they are going to dilate, they are going to bulge, they are going to expand. The soil is going to expand, not the particles, the whole soil is going to expand. You can see that the volume increases, but in the case of loose sand, the soil is going to get compacted, right? Keeping that in mind, as you can see here. So that volume change characteristic basically depends upon the particle size, shape and distribution of the particles, the density index, the principal stresses applied, and the previous stress history. Okay, you can correlate the concept with each of these, isn't it? You can think about it, try to correlate these factors. If the particle size is very large, how is it going to affect? If the principal stresses are very high or low, how is it going to affect? Try to correlate this with the volume change behavior. Okay. So for the time being, let us represent the volume change in terms of void ratio. So if you look at this graph now, void ratio versus shearing strain, you can see initially dense sand and initially loose sand. So initially loose sand means you have a high void ratio, right? Loose sand, you have high void ratio, and dense sand, you have low void ratio. correct? So dense sand, what happened? It dilated, correct? And loose sand, what happened? It got compacted, correct? So you can see that initially loose sand, your void ratio with strain, you can see that the void ratio keeps on coming down, and it has come to this particular point. And for initially dense sand, initially there will be a drop, okay? Initially there will be a drop, as you can see here. Initially there will be a drop, correct? There will be some slight, very small reduction in the volume. So there will be a very slight drop here initially. It's not very clear in this figure, but there will be a very slight drop here. But then after that, what happens? The soil dilates, isn't it? Dense particles, they roll over each other and they will slightly dilate. So you can see that the void ratio slowly increases. But after a particular stage, they both come to the same point. They both come to the same void ratio. So that void ratio is called the critical void ratio, which I mentioned earlier, critical state soil mechanics. So we will stop our studies here. We understand that they both will come to a critical state where it will reach the critical void ratio, E critical, void ratio critical. All right. So in the stress strain behavior also we saw something like that. In all graphs we saw something like that, right? So after this, it's going to be constant. After this, it's going to be constant. After this, it's going to be constant. Again, after this, it's going to be constant. Your shear strength is also going to be constant, right? So after that, the critical state, after it has attained its critical state, then this volume change, your shear strength, all of these are going to be constant, right? So initially loose sand, they will keep on reducing their void ratio and come to this point, and initially dense sand, again here it will dilate and it will come to the critical void ratio, right? So soil particles upon straining, they will slowly roll over each other, they will rearrange, whether it is dense or loose, they will rearrange, they will roll over each other. Some strains are induced due to those stresses, and they will finally come to a equilibrium or a critical condition, which we call critical state of the soil. So in that critical state, they would have achieved this critical void ratio, right? So next topic is liquefaction. Have you heard of soil liquefaction? Okay, it happened. We in India, we have experienced soil liquefaction during the Bhuj earthquake in 2001. So in 2001, there was this huge earthquake in Bhuj, Gujarat. Okay, it had a lot of casualties. So many people died, and from Bhuj to Ahmedabad, which was about 200 kilometers away, it showed so much damage and all. It was one of the deadliest earthquakes in India so far. All right. So during this Bhuj earthquake, the soil liquefied. Okay, liquefied means the soil. What happens in the liquid limit? The soil will lose all its shear strength and it will flow like a liquid, isn't it? Soil will lose all its shear strength. Just imagine. Let us go back to your kitchen. You are filling sand inside. Sorry, you are filling sugar inside your jar. All right. So if you have filled the sugar inside your jar and you want to fill more, what you will do? You will shake it. Correct? Yes. You will shake that jar so that you can fill in more sugar. Correct? So once your jar is already filled, so when you are shaking it, what will happen? The particles will rearrange and it will move down, isn't it? Correct? The particles will, once you vibrate that jar, the particles are going to come into a more compact configuration, and the particles are going to settle down, so you will get more space. Now imagine a loose sandy soil in the same situation, and instead of you vibrating the jug, let the earthquake do that part. All right, seismic loading or dynamic loading. So what happens? The ground is shaken like that, isn't it? The ground is shaken like that, and what happens? These sand particles, they will suddenly settle like this, isn't it? So this happens when, especially when the soil is very saturated. All right, soil is saturated, that means all the voids are filled with water. Now imagine you have a jar filled with sugar, and to the same level you have water also. Okay, now imagine you are shaking that jar. So what will happen? The water will stay in the same level, and your soil is going to settle down, isn't it? So now imagine a real ground, on which you have saturated loose sand, on which you have some structures. You have houses, you have hotels, you have offices, everything. So now the ground is shaking violently, just like you shake that jar. The ground is shaking violently. So what will happen? Suddenly, your soil is going to get displaced. Soil particles are going to roll over each other. They are going to come to a more compact state and it is going to settle down. So on the surface, what do you have now? You have only water. So can water sustain all that loads? No. So what will happen? The soil is going to liquefy and it is going to flow like it's a liquid. The surface you will see water and the structures are going to subside. This is what happens in soil liquefaction. All right. So I have put up a few videos of soil liquefaction in your Ample. So you can go and watch that. The Christchurch earthquake. I have put up a video about the Christchurch earthquake and I have put up two funny videos of liquefaction as well. People jumping on this uh, loose ground around. So you can go and watch that videos today. So this is liquefaction. So soil, the effective stresses becomes zero. No load will be taken by the soil particles and all the load will be taken by pore pressure. But if it is not confined, of course, the water cannot take that load. So the complete shear strength of the soil is lost. So at that stage, the soil behaves like a liquid and it flows. So this phenomenon is called liquefaction. So watch that videos. You can visualize it better. Okay. Another term, soil sensitivity. So, so when undisturbed saturated clays are disturbed or remolded, they lose a part of their shear strength, right? That is why we try to obtain undisturbed samples from the ground, right? I already told you yesterday what are undisturbed samples and what are remolded samples. So we will try to always get undisturbed samples from the soil, from the ground for laboratory test. Why? Because they represent the shear strength and other in situ properties of the soil as closely as possible, right? But that is not the case with remolded soil. You can, bring it to its in situ condition, but not completely, correct? So when the clay soils they are remolded, they lose a part of their shear strength also. You cannot replicate the shear strength as closely as possible as you see in the in situ condition. So when you're remolding, basically your original structure is altered, uh, and that results in change in the arrangement of particles. So the strength gets decreased even without alteration in the water content, right? You don't have to change the water content for that to happen. So you obtain a sample from the field, you retain that moisture content, you bring it to the laboratory and you try to remold it into the same field conditions without changing the water content, but still you can observe that there is some slight reduction in its strength, right, when you remold it. So the sensitivity is a term to quantify this reduction in this strength. Okay, in the in situ condition or undisturbed condition, the soil will have one strength. At the same water content, if you remold it, there will be a slight reduction in that strength. Right? So sensitivity, you use this term to quantify that. Okay, so it is the ratio of undisturbed shear strength to the remolded shear strength under undrained condition, that is without any change in water content. Okay, so sensitivity is equal to tau f of undisturbed soil by tau f of remolded soil, or Cu of undisturbed soil to Cu of remolded soil. Cu represents undrained cohesion because clay soils get their strength from cohesion. So tau of cohesive soils are essentially C itself. So undrained cohesion to undrained cohesion of undisturbed to undrained cohesion of remolded soil. So that ratio is called sensitivity of the soil. So if remolded soil is allowed to rest without change in water content, it regains a part of its lost shear strength. This is called what? You should know this. So this is thixotropy. So thixotropy is nothing but you regain its lost strength. You disturb a soil and at the same water content, you regain that strength over a period of time. So where does thixotropy play its part in soil mechanics or in geotechnical engineering? Where do you see thixotropy? In pile driving or pile boring practices, isn't it? You disturb the soil, you insert a pile, and over time, what happens, that clay will settle back and it will regain its strength over a period of time. So sensitivity is a ratio that represents that strength loss or how sensitive your clay is. right? You have in the comfort zone you have some clay soil. You are going to retrieve that soil from the comfort zone. You are going to disturb it, you are going to shake it, break it, and then you are trying to build it again in the lab, and then you will compare that strength. So it is similar to you guys. How sensitive are you guys, right? You guys are in your comfort zone. So I come every day, I'll come and meet you, I'll ask you viva questions, I shake you, I'll try to break you, but in the process I'm trying to build you back up, isn't it? So I try to build you back up, but when I'm shaking and breaking you, you will lose some strength. You are sensitive, isn't it? Right? You are sensitive. So you will lose some strength, you will lose some confidence, but with time you will gain that back, right? I try to break you, you will lose some strength. So you're remolded now. I'm trying to remold you, right? I'm remolding you. You will lose some strength when I'm remolding in that process. But with time, what you are gaining is you are gaining more and more knowledge, and you are trying to face more challenges, right? So you will slowly you are undergoing remolding and thixotropy now, isn't it? So this sensitivity is the same as that. So sensitivity represents that ratio between the strength in your undisturbed state, right, in your comfort zone, to the strength in your remolded state, your strength or confidence level in the class, right? So tau f undisturbed to tau f remolded. So that ratio represents your sensitivity. So how much strength you are losing, or how much confidence you are losing, how much I am able to break you, that represents basically your sensitivity, isn't it? So they will say, oh, this guy is very sensitive, or this girl is very sensitive, means there will be a large reduction in strength, right? You cannot face that much, remolding at once, right? So that value here, that sensitivity value here, it ranges from 1 to 100. Okay, you can quantify it in a range of 1 to 100. It's like a percentage. So tau f undisturbed soil to tau f remolded soil, that ratio is sensitivity. So with this, we wind up this chapter, and next class onwards we will work out some problems.